Buongiorno and welcome, and thank you for joining us, Riccardo Illy. Riccardo Illy is the president of Polo del Gusto, the extra coffee sector. The name Illy, of course, stands for coffee worldwide. Riccardo was a politician. He held various positions such as mayor of Trieste and president of the region. And he's a published author of a book called Dal Caffè all'Espresso, From Coffee Beans to Espresso. Buongiorno and benvenuti.
Buongiorno, hello everybody.
How are you doing, Riccardo?
Thank you, I'm doing fine. After some months staying at home, finally we are free again. I have been in our resort, Mastroianni in Tuscany last week, so now it's really fine.
And right now, where do we find you? Where are you now?
I stay in Prosecco, which is a tiny village close to Trieste. From my house, I can see the sea. And this village allowed Italy to maintain the name of the wine, Prosecco, which is so successful worldwide right now.
Fantastic. I mean, all these regions that you mentioned make me want to travel, but we're still stuck here with a country that is closed in South Africa, where I'm based. Riccardo, we're talking about made in Italy. What does made in Italy to mean to you as somebody who carries the name of one of the most famous Italian brands?
When I think to made in Italy, two words comes to my mind. One is genius and the other is aesthetics. Genius is applied in mechanics, so we use it for producing robots and machines and even cars. And aesthetics is applied in all the fashion sector, in furniture, in also for cars. So Ferrari, for example, represents the two, genius and also aesthetics. And finally, in the whole food sector, because our aesthetical approach allows us to produce excellent foods. We have excellent chefs and we produce really excellent wines. And both words, genius and aesthetics, are helping us in exporting, at least in the last decades, and I hope this will continue also in the future. And of course, aesthetics is also related to tourism, because it is represented by the beauty of the country, by the cultural and artistic aspects, and by the wonderful hotels and restaurants we have ready to host tourists coming from all over the world.
Amazing how you say that. It should, I think, whoever is holding the brand Italy should copy what you just said, because to me it sums it up beautifully. Thank you very much for that. You mentioned export. Illy Cafe and your products as well from Polo del Gusto is imported into over 140 countries. I've had your coffee, and I'm sure I had some of the other products that Polo del Gusto produces and sends out. Now, seeing the global reach that you have, how has this crisis, how has this pandemic, the fallout from COVID-19, how has it affected your business?
It affected quite sharply, especially what we call the sister companies, so the extra coffee companies, because they were so much focused on the HoReCa, hotel, restaurant and cafes. And as you know, the majority of cafe and restaurant have been locked down for about 2 months, even more. So our sales really had a sharp decline. We could recover partially through the e-commerce. And what we learned is the need to be more balanced in terms of distribution in the different channels. So we want to stay in the HoReCa channel, but we also want to better grow in retail, also in the modern distribution, maybe with different brands or different packaging that are not going to go, let's say, in conflict with the traditional sector and with the HoReCa. And another thing we learned is that we can never put all your cards on just one supplier. In France, we had the opportunity of almost tripling the sales through the e-commerce, but for about 2 weeks, we weren't able to deliver in the Paris area, even if our supplier were the French state-owned postal service. They closed their service for about 2 weeks. It's amazing. So another lesson we learned is that you need at least always to have 2 suppliers, better if 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can say that our coffee machine at home has worked much, much harder now since we're in lockdown than it has before, because you don't go out for coffee anymore. You have to have it inside. And I think that's definitely a growth market, and people are probably recognizing that we can also have good coffee at home. One thing which I read and found most interesting, I mean, coffee is normally seen as a commodity, but there are, or have been over the last number of years, initiatives by yourself and your company to decommoditize coffee and to create fairer practices and create sustainable coffee regions through long-term supply contracts. Tell us a couple of things about that, because sustainability is obviously something that many of us want to see coming out of this crisis, and you're already leading the way there, I believe.
Yes, decommoditization is strictly related with the sustainability. We thought that with an increasing percentage of consumer worldwide, even in developing countries, even in China to say, or in Brazil to mention another country, of wealth people, their demand won't be anymore just for coffee or pasta or chocolate or tea, but for high quality, top quality coffee, tea, and chocolate. So we choose a strategy for our product that I call disruptive quality. And disruptive quality is represented by 4 pillars. The first one is you need a quality, a superior quality that can be recognized even by a non-expert. Second, the use of the best raw material. Third, of a process for producing the goods which is different and incompatible with the mainstream process. And finally, the attention on sustainability. And that means mainly environmental and social sustainability. So we pay our growers for coffee, for cocoa, for teas, a price which is higher than the one of the commodity prices that you can find in the stock exchange in New York or in London, because we get a higher quality. And this price will cover all the costs of the growers, will leave them a margin, and will finally leave them a special, let's say, price if the quality is such superior than compared to our needs. And thanks to this, we think that our growers are able to not only have a decent way of life, but they will be able to grow further their plantation, to further improve the quality of the products they are supplying to us. And this is our, let's say, philosophy. Illy Cafe is even certified for the responsible supply chain. And also the Mori for chocolate and the Man for tea will get this kind of certification in the future.
Right. That's fantastic. That is really, really good to know, and I wish that more would follow that example, because I think sustainability is something that is not just Fridays for Future and for young people, but even for the grey foxes like ourselves, is something very, very important to make sure that we leave a planet that is better than the one that we're finding right now. Time is running out. I just want to have 1 or 2 sentences from you where you think where we're going with this. I know it's difficult in 2 sentences. Is there something positive that we can take out of this crisis? Will we be better people? Will we be better companies?
I think there were 3 important trends before the coronavirus crisis. One was in politics. Democracy was under, let's say, scrutiny. And the second was in the economy. The capital system was under, I would say, even critics. And the third one was energy. We were already in a shift from oil, gas, energy to renewable. And I think that the crisis is going to accelerate the 3 changes, the 3 shifts. So probably we will find a new way to govern our countries. I hope not a dictatorship as we have in some countries, but a more participated democratic system thanks to digitization. Second, I think in the capitalism, we will have more and more benefit corporations. So corporations that are taking care not only of their shareholders, of profits, but first of all of their customers and of all the stakeholders, starting from the employees, going to supplier, and going to the environment, and going finally to the local community where the company are working. And finally, in energy, I'm quite sure that the crisis will accelerate the shift. Already now, renewables energies are costing less than the oil or gas produced electricity. Mm-hmm. And so this will accelerate the process of shifting almost all the production to renewables. And finally, I think we will save the planet, not so much for the wise politics, but for the effects of the economy.
Let's hope that happens. What you said, I really like that as closing. Thank you so much, mille grazie, and I hope to meet you in person one day soon. Giorgio, thank you so much for arranging this, and we'll chat very soon. Mille grazie.
Okay, grazie. See you soon. Grazie a voi.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Arrivederci.